Hi, this is Jolynn Lutz from One Heart TV, and I'm here with Zara. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple of subjects that are dear to my heart, talking about the heart. We're going to be touching on that in just a little bit. But I really want Zara. Zara, welcome
Hi,
first.
thank you.
Good to have you on as always. Let's update a little bit. You posted something last week on Facebook and maybe on your blog about some changes that are coming down the pike. Um, some, I can't believe it. I'm going to say this, truth out there.
Mm.
Nice to hear on cancer. And so can you allude on
Ah, so yeah, I think you're referring to, I had shared some information yesterday, and I know some others had been sharing this as it's come out recently, which is about the CIA and our government suppressing information regarding potential cancer cures and treatments for cancer that are effective. And so that information is regarding a study that was done back in the 50s. Originally, the Russians had overseen this study, but the CIA had gotten a hold of it and created files about it and understood it and then suppressed that information. It was a confidential document that nobody could see until about 2014. But obviously, in 2014, if nobody was alerted that this was even like made, taken out of the confidential status and where they could see it, and people didn't really know even to look for it. So I'm not really sure who discovered this and brought it forward more recently, but it is, and I've actually shared like in the post and in the comments the link from the Freedom of Information Act where you can actually see the document. So this isn't just hearsay. This isn't just a rumor. This is something very real. And that document, what it was talking about and what that study had shown is that certain medications that had been studied for the treatment of parasites were found extremely helpful and very effective and successful in the treatment of cancer and in killing cancer. And they went on to talk about how cancer and parasites share some similarities. And so it's not that the parasites and the cancer are the same thing. And it's not that the parasites are necessarily the cause of the cancer. It's more about how they have there's a lot of similarities in how they operate, how they survive, and what they do in the body. And that the same medications that successfully treat many parasites have been successful in treating cancer and actually kill cancer cells and cancer stem cells, stop their replication, etc. Now, this information is something that some of us who work in the alternative healing of cancer and work with holistic health and alternative therapies and things like that have known about, not because of the CIA document, but through other research, other evidence, and other people experimenting on themselves over the years and things like that. And so we've been able to see that there are some what are called repurposed medicines, repurposed drugs, so to speak, meaning they were created to do one thing, later found to do other things.
Oh,
And some of these are very effective in treating cancer. I work with a lot of cancer patients, and I've taught many of these patients about how to use some of these safely and effectively. And I have seen many, many people go from having cancer to not having cancer. Many of them with stage 4 cancers, many of them that the oncology departments gave up on and sometimes even told them to go get ready to die, even though they weren't necessarily dying, or told them, really hopeless types of things, such as like, oh, you probably only have a few months to live. And these are things they'll say when their treatments fail. It doesn't mean that the person's body is ready to die. And so many of those people didn't listen to that. And whenever I meet with people who've heard those things, I encourage them not to listen to that they still have hope and there are still things to do. So, because of these types of medicines and because of what some of us have known and researched and seen, we've been able to help people in the healing of cancers and more with some of these medications. So I was happy to see, well, it's just basically confirming what a lot of us have known and been doing.
mm,
And to see that evidence, it's also very disappointing that our own government has lied to us and hidden things that could have helped their people. What I see, at least in this country, is our government And most of the medical institutions don't really care about the health of the people. They're more interested in profits and, being a part of creating things that look like they might be helping people, but it's really more just about making them rich and wealthy at the expense of the people. And so this was just another piece of evidence with that, but also very much a confirmation that a lot of us are been doing something that actually has a lot of validity, and they've known about it for a long time. They've known about it since the 50s. So think about all the people since the 50s who've had cancer, whose cancer treatments have failed them, who have died, who could have had access to something much more safe and effective than what they were doing and might have been here today. And when you realize that, you realize, like I said, our government doesn't really care about us when it comes to our health and our healing. So that was what that post was about, was sharing that information.
So I want to
Yeah.
encourage people to go. Do you have this noted on your blog as well so they can look at
I don't have it up on my website, but it's
okay.
on my Facebook page right now. And so I share a lot of research and education and kind of cover a lot of things like that on my personal Facebook page. Sometimes you'll see some personal posts. I like to share things I do, but mostly it's education and health type of stuff.
Super, super appreciate it. And again, we are not advising you in any way or telling you how to do these protocols. We want to remind you all to look into this information. We're here to give you information so you can dig a little bit deeper. Zara, I want to go back for a moment. I want to go back. You said parasites. I just got
Mhm.
back from a Dr. Joe Dispenza. He said that a cancer cell that takes off because we've got them in our bodies, typically they're just not firing correctly. It's kind of like they're just wobbling in there is how I imagine it. I'm not quite sure. But you included parasites.
Mhm.
What's the deal with parasites? Can you just expand a little bit how that would affect a
Um,
healthy cell if possible? Or what are
well,
parasites? Why are they in us?
parasites, I mean, and so there's a lot of things that I would say behave kind of like parasites. So if we think about what a parasite does, just kind of on a simple level, is it's going to use some of the energy and nutrients and things within your own body to grow on. It's using you as a host and it's taking things from you. It's kind of taking your energy, taking your nutrients, taking, some of what you need to survive. And so it can weaken the host over time if there is a big proliferation and long-standing, parasite infection. But if we look at also, say, other pathogens and microbes, perhaps like fungus or candida or mold or viruses or pathogenic bacteria or cancer cells, they take from the body. They feed on certain things that are important for us, maybe nutrients or blood, or they use some of our biological matter or the things that we are putting in ourselves to be well, such as like certain nutrients from our food, et cetera, to grow on. So they can weaken the host over time. They tend to proliferate and they try to find ways to protect themselves and hide themselves. And so all of those things have a lot in common that way. They're not necessarily parasites, but I'd say they're parasitic in a sense where they're, living on the host and taking from it. And so parasites and cancer cells have a lot in common also in the way that they use energy, especially like glucose and glycogen in the system. They thrive more in a low oxygen type of environment. They thrive more in an acidic environment, and so there's a lot of similarities. And parasites, a lot of people think parasite infections and parasites happen to people in like unsanitary conditions or third
Exactly.
world countries. And the truth
Water.
is, they happen to everyone all over the world.
Oh,
And most people have some parasites in them. That doesn't mean you have big, long worms or anything like that. You might, but it doesn't
okay.
necessarily mean that. There are parasites that are microscopic. There are blood parasites, parasites that live in organs or bile ducts. Parasites can go into the eyes or into the brain. There's parasites that can live on the skin or in the skin, and many, many types of parasites all over the world. And I'll tell you that, I lived in Central America. I lived in Costa Rica for over 15 years. And in throughout Central and South America, it's a very common thing that people understand that it's important to do periodic parasite purging to
Hmm.
just clean their bodies of parasites so that they can stay well. Same as for anybody who has pets. You understand that usually. I hope so that, it's good to do some deworming protocols and things with your dogs and your cats. Anyone who has horses, cows, goats, pigs, those types of things. I can guarantee you they understand for that animal to be well, they do periodic parasite treatments. But as humans, and especially humans in places like the United States and a lot of more developed and industrialized countries, they don't think that they need to do this. And we've gone so far that we're very disconnected from a lot of our traditional wisdom and a lot of the, older ways of taking care of ourselves. And, we've leaned into and gone so far towards like synthetic treatments and pharmaceuticals and things like that. And this idea that like we don't need to take care of parasites, or people just aren't taught about it. So they don't understand that. And so there can be a higher level of their growth in bodies, and that can weaken the system over time, not just taking your nutrients, but stressing your organs, creating inflammation. And when you have enough kind of systemic breakdown and the immune system isn't as strong, well, now it's more easy for certain pathogens to proliferate. And so we'll commonly see with chronic illnesses and complex conditions like cancer or other issues that, commonly there's other things going on. There's other things that have, grown out of or grown into a more problematic population. And so commonly with cancer, we're going to see a higher level of fungal overgrowth. A lot of times you will see, a good level of parasites, sometimes not always, but, that can be a factor. And there's a lot of other things with cancer that could be underlying factors, such as a mold proliferation or heavy metals, or a lot of times there's what we call oncoviruses, viruses that can lead to cancer, such as like Epstein-Barr virus and the
Oh,
HPV virus,
right,
and even
right.
COVID. COVID has been one that I have seen, and I'm not even talking about the shots, I'm just talking about the COVID itself. In some cases, I have seen where it made the cancer worse, or it even seems like it was kind of a preliminary factor for the development of that cancer. So there's a lot of things that can contribute and cause cancers. And a lot of people simplify it and think that parasites are the cause of all cancers. Not necessarily. They're just commonly in a higher population when there is cancer. And a lot of times, if someone had a really bad infestation, could it lead to cancer? Sure, it could, but it's not always the case. And I think that it's important that people understand that, because if you don't understand, there's a lot of other things that might be going on, and you're only going towards like
Yeah.
thinking it's a parasite, you might miss doing some of the work that's necessary to heal properly.
I think a big one, and I'm going to tie this in now that we're talking about this, that there are different factors. And one that's on my mind in particular is I just lost my brother. He had advanced dementia, was put in a facility where they moved him and they just gave him all this medication to
Yeah.
subdue him, so much so that he ended up dying of a stroke. Uh,
Mm.
and he wasn't the same person a year ago when I saw him
Yeah.
weeks ago. So yeah, I'm not in love with the medication system at all, especially what
No.
they did with him. It seems he was expendable. My
Yeah.
curiosity is it put a stressor, as the facility even told me, this medication puts a stressor on these individuals, on their heart. Can we talk just a little bit about the heart and how we can keep it healthy as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot of medications from, the pharmaceutical world that have a lot of secondary negative effects. And so sometimes people take something for one thing, but it leads to another thing. And that's to me really sad, because typically there are natural things and safer things that usually can replace most of those medications. But in places like that, where they have to go by FDA regulations and the FDA doesn't approve any supplements, vitamins, herbs, alternative therapies, et cetera, they're kind of stuck in a situation where they're only allowed to give certain things from that medical system, which often have really bad side effects. And I'm really sorry that your brother experienced that. And I know, just on a side note, how difficult dementia is. My father had dementia and passed away just a little over a year ago. And I saw the changes and everything that happened, and it's difficult. But the heart, yeah. And so heart disease is one of the biggest killers in the United States and in many other countries. And it's sad because ultimately I believe it's a very preventable thing. It's a lifestyle issue typically. There's very rarely that, the heart disease and the death of, issues with the heart comes from like a genetic factor. Not saying that that can't happen. It's just rare. Most of heart disease is preventable, and I'd say some of the best ways to take care of the heart is, first of all, diet. I always look at diet as the foundation for a lot of things. And so if we look at the diets of so many people nowadays, eating highly processed foods, eating a lot of sugar, drinking a lot of alcohol, eating like high amounts of, really saturated animal fats, artificial things. All of that is really, really hard on the heart. A lot of people, used to believe that, it was fat, basically fat and too much fat in the diet that caused heart disease. And well, certain fats can definitely contribute, especially like refined oils, like, refined canola and soy and sunflower and those things. They can be really hard on the body, on the liver and the heart, but also an overabundance of like fried foods and high levels of saturated animal fats can lead to that too. But what a lot of people don't understand is it's actually more sugar that can stress the heart and create heart disease and arterial plaque more than some of those other things, and not saying those other things don't contribute, but they do. And so there's been this idea that, cholesterol is really dangerous for our heart. And the truth is that's not true.
Mm.
There's just a whole myth around cholesterol that's been presented to us. They've skewed the numbers and the readings, and what they call high cholesterol really isn't high cholesterol. And most people don't have heart damage or heart disease because of cholesterol levels. That's a lie.
Huh.
Statins that they put people on, the scam is they wanted to sell some drugs, and statins actually can lead to heart disease because they starve the heart of CoQ10, which is very necessary for the heart. And they also starve the brain of cholesterol. And there's a huge connection between the use of statins and dementia and Alzheimer's and other issues, And so that's
Wow.
that's something I see going on that I really hope that people become more aware of. Again,
Can you
on my
say
own,
that? Can you say that again?
about
That you
which part.
that about how you've seen this leading to these other
Yeah, and there's a
things?
lot of research, not just what I've seen. There's a lot of research on this. And so also if people want to go to my Facebook page, February 20th, and I'm remembering the date because someone asked me about it yesterday.
Good.
February 20th, I made a post all about cholesterol, heart disease, what I'm talking about, the scam of statins and all of that. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of good info there in the comments. There's a lot of research if you want to dig deeper into this. But what I was saying is that, statins, the drug that they use to manage cholesterol, actually starves the heart of CoQ10, which is a necessary nutrient for the heart to function properly. And they also starve the brain of cholesterol. And the brain itself is made up of a lot of cholesterol, and it needs a certain amount of cholesterol to function well. So it can lead to cognitive disorders, and it also can lead to things like dementia and Alzheimer's. And there's a huge amount of research proving that. And so, personally, I try to get people off statins if they're coming to me, for help with their healing and all of that, because they're not necessary. Some of the ways there's very rare cases that cholesterol is an issue. And I'm not saying it can't be in certain cases, but it's rare. And ultimately, if someone's having issues with cholesterol, you got to look at your liver. Your liver is where cholesterol is created and how it's managed and all of that.
Okay.
So you need to improve your liver health and probably change your diet some, getting more fiber and good plant foods in there, and things like that. But in general, recent studies have shown us that higher cholesterol from like the age of 50 and up is leading to healthier, longer lives. So it's
Oh,
not killing people, like they've told us. They've
yeah.
told us these lies so they could sell drugs and make, millions and billions of dollars. And I'll just tell you this, I meet with a lot of people, not just for cancer, but for many things. And there is a ridiculous amount of people that show up on statins. And so I can see this is a widespread thing that they really, really are trying to push and sell. It's a, billion-dollar industry. But if you start doing the research about it, you'll start to see what I'm saying is true. And so if you want good heart health, I would say, like I'm talking about diet, exercise, stress reduction, using natural remedies for things. Some of the things the heart really loves and needs is like CoQ10, as I mentioned, magnesium, potassium,
Right.
omega 3s. There's things like the proteolytic enzymes like nattokinase and serrapeptase that can eat away at certain things in the body and also help protect the heart and keep the arteries clean. And more than just the heart, but when it comes to the heart, those are really helpful things. Some of the medicinal mushrooms like reishi and cordyceps have been well studied for improving heart health. Herbs like hawthorn berry. So there's a lot of ways we can support the heart with supplementation and natural remedies. But ultimately, I really believe at the base of trying to prevent heart disease or treating it, let's look to the diet. Let's
Right.
make sure there's some activity and exercise happening, and let's work on stress reduction. Those three things are probably the most important things for heart health, but are commonly overlooked. And if you go to the doctor, they really talk about those things. They
Right.
just are ready to write a script and give
Yeah.
you a pill and tell you to go on your way.
If that
And
one
then
doesn't
often
work,
one pill leads to a problem with something else, and then they'll try to give you a pill for that. And
another
next thing
pill.
you
I
know, you'll
it,
see, like I get people who come to me sometimes and they're on 20 different things.
yeah.
And the work that I do is like, hey,
Wow.
let's go through this and see what we can get rid of,
Good.
and generally they get better the less of those things they're taking.
I love Barbara O'Neill out of Australia, and she's
Mhm.
recommended taking just a little pinch 3 times a day, like a shot of cayenne pepper. Have you heard
Yeah.
of
Yeah, cayenne's really, really good for the heart. It
yeah.
it improves the heart circulation, like circulatory system and all of that, but also both cayenne and I had mentioned the proteolytic enzymes like serrapeptase and nattokinase. These things help with preventing clotting. So, we need a good amount of coagulation, but we don't want over coagulation, so you get blood clots. That can lead to strokes and other issues like
Wow.
that. And so
Okay.
we want to have our blood in a healthy place. A lot of people take like low dose aspirin for that. I prefer to go even more natural. White
Yeah.
willow is the natural alternative to aspirin,
Okay.
and it's made of the same things, but from a natural place. And also, like using things like serrapeptase or nattokinase or cayenne, these are going to prevent, clots and keep your blood in a healthier place. And so it's preventing clotting and preventing any issues that, that could lead to with the heart. And so cayenne's a very, very heart healthy, blood healthy thing to be having.
Yeah. A little too hot for my tongue,
Me
but
too, but they sell cayenne supplements, and so I'm a person who I didn't grow up with a lot of spice in my life, and so
yeah,
I never really developed a taste for it, and I don't know, I'm very sensitive to it, and
me
so a
too.
little a little spice, but there are cayenne supplements for that. Sometimes I have people go on cayenne supplements for these reasons, and so I know that you can get them in that way, so you don't have to taste that spiciness.
There's a couple of things I want to end here with. Thank you so much. This has been really insightful. I do believe in heart health, and Dr. Joe says when you hit the heart, that's when the big opening. We need
Yeah,
so much love in our hearts. This is
yeah.
from heart math, basically the brain coherence.
Mhm.
And then they stated the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart.
Mm.
So after I got done with Dr. Joe this past weekend, one of the things over and over is that the brain is the receiver, okay? So a lot of information comes in through the heart, and I do
Yeah,
believe we need to keep it healthy. Her, him,
yeah,
got to keep it healthy.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
well,
I'd say
thank you.
healthy, I just wanted to add to that,
Yeah,
healthy on the
please.
physical side, healthy on the physical side, and healthy on the emotional side too. That's
Exactly.
important. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really important that you take care of your heart. If you're dealing with unforgiveness, resentment, bitterness, grief, heartaches, deal with it. Because I'll tell you this, it's, when sickness hits our body, it's not just a physical thing. There's always an emotional component,
Hmm.
and there could be, some of our thoughts and beliefs influencing things. And I'll tell you that a lot of the people that come to me who have breast cancer, a lot of them are very aware. They've had heartache, they have grief, they
Ah,
have, things that have hurt their hearts or they're sad about that they haven't dealt with.
right.
And so we can see there's a definite influence sometimes with the emotional body, the emotions that aren't healed that have an effect on the physical. It's never just one thing, and I say treat it all, treat
Yeah.
all of it. If you're sick with something or you're dealing with something, definitely treat yourself from the physical level, but look to the emotional body as well. Are there things you need to release? Are there things you need to forgive? Are there things you need to work on to be better, letting go of traumas or whatever it is? There's a wonderful book called The Body Keeps Score that's all about
Ah,
this, about
yes.
how our traumas and emotions and thoughts and all those things can stay stuck in the body and lead to illness and disease. So, if we want good, healthy heart, yes, we need to exercise and eat well and do all those good things and, take care of your emotional body as well. And speak love to yourself. Speak
Yes.
life into yourself. Speak
Yes.
love to yourself. So the more that you fill yourself with love and loving energy, the more you have to share with others. And it becomes this like circular thing where we're giving and receiving. But if our heart is closed, we can't really receive and we can't really give. So we got to work on, opening it up and working with breath work, energetic work, consciousness around that. And that's going to lead to a healthier heart as well.
I do believe over the years, I'll totally agree that once you start putting these things into practice, and it is practice
Hmm.
like me, I'm a guitarist. I always told my students, you want to get good, practice. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a fold of unfolding different things that I do to I want to stay healthy through the very, very end. I really want to go off this planet happy and joyful, and it lies in the heart. Well, thank you, Zara.
Yeah.
Thank you again for enlightening us on cancer, the newest information by the CIA. I love that. And they can
Mhm.
find that again on your Facebook page.
Yeah, right now it's posted on my Facebook page. I just that one about that CIA document and all
Yeah.
of that, that's on my page. That was just yesterday. The one about cholesterol, statins, and all that, that was, like I said, February 20th.
February
So
20th. Okay, I'll try to
mhm.
put that in the notes again, and I really appreciate it. Wow. This has been great.
Yeah.
I want you all to remember that we've got more videos on One Heart TV with Zara. If you're just first tuning in, hit that subscribe button, like us, blah, blah, blah. You know the deal. And share us because we are just wanting so dearly, right, Zara, to give this information out,
Absolutely.
out,
Yeah.
out to our beloved human family.
Yeah. Yeah. The more that we share good information and help others, come to this type of information, the more that perhaps we'll get more people empowered with the ability to help themselves in good ways and to stay healthy and to seek healthier ways to live. And the healthier we are, the better that we're going to be at everything we do. So,
Definitely,
and
definitely.
usually the happier we are too. So it's hard to be really happy when you're not feeling well. So, if you
Don't
want to be
rely on
happy and
don't rely
fulfill
on
your
our do-
purpose,
yeah,
yep.
don't rely on our politicians because they got other business to do, like
Yeah.
get us into things we shouldn't be in. All right. Love you so much, y'all. You have a great rest of your day, Zara, and I look forward to our next talk. All right.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.